The vast darkness of space was calm as the alien armada approached the blue planet called Earth. Hundreds of warships floated in formation, their metal hulls shining under the distant sun. The commanders of the fleet were confident. They had crushed many worlds before. Earth was just another target for them, another planet to conquer and add to their empire. Their sensors scanned the planet carefully. There were no defense satellites, no active fleets, no energy shields. It looked weak, silent, and unprepared. The alien High Commander, Zarak, stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the planet on the wide holoscreen. He spoke in a cold voice to his officers. This world is defenseless. The Council was right. The humans are backward. Prepare the invasion protocols. The officers nodded. They expected an easy victory. They thought they would land, take control of the cities, and make the humans surrender in a single day. But something was strange. The signals from Earth were too quiet. Civilian networks were active, yes, but there was no military traffic, no encrypted chatter, no panic. It was as if the planet did not care about the massive armada hovering closer with every hour. Zarak frowned. He was a veteran of many wars, and this silence did not feel normal. In his experience, an enemy that stayed too quiet was often hiding a knife behind its back. He ordered a deeper scan of the upper orbit. The scanners came back empty. Nothing but old satellites and debris. Pathetic, said his second officer. They have no fleet, no stations. This will be over before the second moonrise. But then a small flicker appeared on one of the long-range sensors, a pulse of encrypted data moving between two dead satellites. It was fast, almost invisible, but the sensor AI caught it. Zarak zoomed in. The message was too scrambled to read, but a single word was decoded: activate. The commander's cold eyes narrowed. What is being activated? He asked, but no one answered. Hours passed. The alien fleet spread out to encircle the planet. Warships the size of cities positioned themselves over major continents. Their weapons were armed, their dropships were ready. Still, Earth did nothing. In the command bridge of the flagship, the tension started to grow. Officers whispered that maybe the humans were already surrendering. Others said they were cowards. But Zarak felt a chill he could not explain. Suddenly, the communication channels of the fleet began to flicker. One by one, the long-range relays went silent. Ships began losing contact with each other. At first, they blamed solar interference. But the sun was calm. Then static filled the command screens. A low hum passed through the flagship, like a ripple in the void. Report. Zarak shouted. What is causing this? No one knew. The silence grew deeper. Even the civilian networks of Earth began to shut down, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Then, a strange transmission broke through the static. It was a human voice, calm and sharp. First strike protocol, active. The words repeated 3 times in different languages, then vanished. Every officer froze. First strike? What was that? No one had ever heard of such a thing in the Council's database. Before they could react, one of the battleships on the fleet's right flank vanished from the radar. Not exploded, not destroyed, just gone, like it had never existed. The crew gasped. Sensor error, someone said, but then another ship disappeared. Then a third. There were no explosions, no energy beams, no missiles. Just silence and emptiness where proud warships once floated. Panic began to creep through the ranks. Zarak clenched his fists. Find the source, he barked. The scanners spun faster, but the more they scanned, the less they saw. Something was moving out there, something their technology could not detect. In the vast black, a shadow passed before the stars, so fast no one could focus on it. For a brief moment, the flagship's external cameras caught a glimpse, a dark outline, massive, with strange angles that bent the starlight around it. Then it was gone. The alien officers stared at the frozen frame. Is that a ship? Whispered the second officer. Impossible. No human ship has that size or stealth capability. Zarak said nothing. His instincts screamed that the real battle had not even begun. The calm sky of Earth was not empty. It was waiting. Outside, the fleet started to tighten its formation, but it was already too late. The first strike had begun. The alien armada floated uneasy above the blue planet as silence pressed on their minds like a heavy weight. Hours had passed since the first ships vanished without a sound, yet no wreckage had been found, no debris to mark their destruction. The commanders tried to explain it as a sensor malfunction, a trick of space, but the fear in their eyes betrayed their words. On the flagship, Zarak paced the bridge, his long fingers tapping the cold metal rail. He had led campaigns against fortified worlds, stormed planets with entire armies, but never had he faced an enemy that fought with emptiness. He ordered the fleet to regroup and send drones to search the last known positions of the missing warships. Hundreds of scout drones shot into the darkness, their tiny engines glowing like fireflies, but one by one their signals went dark. Only static returned. No explosions, no impact warnings, only the cold whisper of the void swallowing them whole. The officers began to speak in hushed voices. Is it some kind of weapon? A field that erases matter? One asked. Or maybe a ghost fleet? Another muttered, earning nervous glances. Ghost fleet. The word spread quickly through the lower ranks. Crews started seeing shadows in the distance, movements in the dark, faint shapes where no ships should be. On the outer rim of the formation, a destroyer reported strange echoes, signals bouncing back as if something massive was behind them, but when they turned their sensors there was nothing but empty stars. Fear grew like frost on glass. Zarak slammed his fist on the console. Enough with the ghost stories. This is a planet of primitives. There are no ghosts here, only humans. But even as he spoke, a whisper of static slid across the bridge speakers. A low voice, human, calm, almost mocking. Leave, or be erased. The words repeated twice before the channel went dead. Every officer stared at each other. That voice had not come from Earth's open frequencies. It came from within their own network. Someone, or something, was inside their systems. Zarak called for a full diagnostic, but the engineers reported no breach, no virus, nothing they could find. Yet more ships kept vanishing. It always began with a flicker on the radar, a brief distortion, and then silence. One moment a cruiser was there, the next it was a shadow fading into nothingness. No distress signals, no life pods, only the void. The crews became restless. Some refused to sleep, staring out of the viewports as if the stars themselves were hunting them. Others whispered that the humans had unleashed ancient machines, something older than their species, something that did not fire bullets or beams but simply erased its prey from existence. In the Council's history there had been rumors of lost technologies, weapons banned in ancient treaties, devices that could hide between dimensions. But those were myths, and this was supposed to be a simple conquest. Zarak felt the weight of his decisions pressing harder with each hour. His second officer urged him to retreat and regroup, but Zarak's pride burned hotter than his fear. No, he said. If we run now, the Council will see us as weak. We hold this orbit until we understand their weapon. To calm the crew, he ordered a demonstration of strength. Dozens of plasma lances were fired at empty space where the ghosts were last seen. Blue-white fire tore across the darkness, lighting up the heavens for minutes, but when the glow faded there was nothing, no wreckage, no target destroyed. Only silence answered. Then, as the alien fleet prepared another volley, all lights on the flagship flickered and died. For 5 long seconds, the bridge was plunged into blackness, the only sound the slow breathing of terrified officers. When the lights returned, half of their escort ships were gone. Not burning. Not drifting. Gone. Sensors screamed with false data, showing hundreds of phantom contacts that blinked in and out like dying stars. The crew panicked. Some screamed about a phantom fleet circling them, others said the humans had cloaked warships right above their heads. Zarak gripped the command chair and forced his voice to stay steady. Transmit to the entire fleet, he said. Stay in formation. Lock weapons on any anomaly. We will not break. But his words felt hollow. Deep down, he knew they were fighting something they could not see, could not touch. The planet below remained calm, its cities glowing with normal lights, its seas unmoved. It was as if the humans were watching from behind a curtain, waiting for the right moment to pull the string tighter. In the mess halls, soldiers whispered about a code they had intercepted earlier, First Strike Protocol. No one knew what it meant, but it sounded like a beginning, not an end. One officer dared to suggest that perhaps the humans had never been weak at all. Perhaps their silence had been the real trap. As the next cycle passed, the alien fleet's morale began to crack. Signals failed more often, engines flickered, and strange pulses of energy danced across their hulls like invisible waves. Zarak sat in his command chair, staring at the silent Earth. "What are you hiding?" he whispered. But the planet did not answer. Only the ghosts of missing ships drifted in the minds of their crews, and the void whispered promises of more to come. The alien fleet hovered in a broken circle above Earth, fear crawling like a cold shadow through every corridor of every ship. The disappearances had not stopped, they had only grown bolder. Entire squadrons had vanished without leaving even a spark behind. Zarak, the High Commander, had not slept for 2 full cycles. His eyes were fixed on the blue planet, his claws tapping against the command chair as if trying to summon an answer from the silence below. The Council expected a victory report by dawn, but he had no victory, only whispers and missing ships. Suddenly, the long-range sensors screamed. A massive energy surge appeared on the dark side of Earth. The readings spiked far above any known planetary weapon. "What is that?" shouted his second officer. Zarak leaned forward as the holoscreen painted a single, enormous shape emerging from Earth's shadow. It was not a station. It was not a satellite. It was a ship. A warship unlike anything in the Council's records. Its dark hull bent the starlight, its edges sharp as a blade, and its sheer size dwarfed even their largest dreadnought. The name flickered briefly in alien letters, then translated into their language by the autoreader, HSS Retributor. A voice filled the comms, calm, cold, and very human. "This is Earth's first strike vessel. You were warned. Now you will witness." Before the aliens could react, the space around the Retributor shimmered with a pulse of invisible energy. 30 alien cruisers on the fleet's western flank simply imploded into silence, their hulls folding as if crushed by an unseen fist. There was no time to scream, no time to fire. One moment they existed, the next they were part of the void. Panic erupted across the fleet. Commands overlapped. Some ships tried to flee. Others turned their guns toward the shadowy vessel, firing plasma bolts and fusion lances. The space lit up with fire, but the human ship did not move like any ship they had ever seen. It shifted in a blur, its outline flickering between dimensions, every shot passing harmlessly through empty space. Then it struck again. A thin beam of light cut across the formation, and a battleship twice its size split in two like soft metal. Its pieces drifted silently, no explosion, only precision destruction. Zarak roared orders, trying to restore formation, but fear was stronger than discipline. "How is this possible?" his officer gasped. "No human world has this technology." Zarak did not answer. He stared at the Retributor, and for the first time in his long career, he felt small. The ship broadcasted another message, this time to the entire fleet. "You came to conquer Earth. You will not return. This is not war. This is judgment." With that, the Retributor vanished. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone, leaving only the echo of its words. The sensors searched frantically, scanning every shadow, but the ship had disappeared into the void like a ghost. Then, one by one, the alien ships began to die. Not from explosions or visible attacks, but from within. Their engines froze, their systems shut down, their life support failed. It was as if an invisible hand was plucking them out of existence at will. Across the fleet, panic turned into chaos. Crews abandoned posts. Some ships tried to break orbit and escape, but a sudden shockwave slammed through the entire formation, knocking them off course. The source was clear. The retributor had returned, this time right above Earth, its weapons glowing faintly like the edge of a burning sword. "Target the flagship," Zarak ordered desperately, but the moment the first guns aimed, their targeting systems turned to static. The human ship unleashed its fury. Blinding arcs of energy struck through the blackness, each one tearing through layers of alien armor like paper. Dozens of ships were erased in seconds. Zarak clung to his chair, his mind racing. "Retreat!" he shouted. "All remaining ships, retreat!" But it was already too late. The first strike had begun, and the sky belonged to Earth now. One last message crackled through every surviving ship, spoken in the same cold human voice. "We warned you once. There will not be a second." Then the retributor fired a single lance of pure light directly at the heart of the fleet. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but its force tore the darkness apart, sending burning fragments drifting like dying stars. Those few who managed to jump away carried only terror with them, no victory, no glory. In that moment, the galaxy learned the truth. Earth was not weak. Earth had been waiting. The remains of the alien fleet drifted like broken bones above Earth, their formation shattered, their pride torn apart by the sudden wrath of the human warship. The retributor had vanished again, leaving only burning wrecks and dead silence in its wake. Those who survived clung to the hope that it would not return, but hope was thin in the cold of space. Zarak stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, his eyes fixed on the scattered dots of fleeing vessels. Every channel was filled with panic. Ships begged for coordinates to retreat, but the star maps were scrambled. Navigation systems flickered as if some unseen force had taken control. "All units regroup at Point Theta," Zarak ordered, but his command reached only static. The fleet was no longer a fleet. It was a collection of hunted animals scattered in the void. Panic spread like fire in dry grass. Crews fought each other to board escape pods, officers sent false orders to abandon posts, and whispers of mutiny began to crawl through the decks. The name of the human ship echoed in every corridor, the retributor. Some called it a ghost ship, some called it a god's weapon. None believed it was only human. As the alien flagship tried to stabilize its systems, a sudden pulse rippled through the void. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, and every screen showed the same message for a single heartbeat: "This is the cost of invasion." Then the message disappeared, leaving the crew in cold silence. Zarak slammed his clawed fist on the console, denting the steel. "Find them!" he shouted. "Find that ship. Find their base. I do not care if it hides behind the moon or beneath their oceans, find it." But even as his voice roared, his heart sank. The retributor did not act like a ship searching for victory. It acted like a predator, striking from the dark, never staying still, never giving them a target. One by one, more ships went dark. No flash, no noise, just a sudden loss of life signs. The void was filled with whispers now, false echoes, phantom signals, and sensor ghosts. Crews reported seeing shadows move across their viewports, dark shapes gliding against the stars, too large to be real, too quiet to track. Fear turned sharp and poisonous. On one destroyer, the captain shot his own officer when the man tried to change course without orders. On another, the crew sabotaged their own engines in a desperate attempt to power the shields, only to drift helplessly when the systems refused to obey. Zarak watched his empire's finest armada fall apart without a single proper battle. His second officer came to him, eyes wide and voice shaking. "Commander, we must call the council. We need reinforcements, or we need to escape. If we stay, there will be nothing left." Zarak stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Send the call. Tell them. Earth is not what we were told." But the moment the distress signal left the flagship, the entire communication array overheated and died in a shower of sparks. A cold voice echoed through the ship's speakers again: "No one leaves this sky." It was the same human voice, calm and merciless. All across the fleet, that voice played like a ghostly wind. Panic became madness. Ships fired on empty space, convinced they were shooting at the retributor. Friendly fire tore through their own ranks, leaving more wreckage for the void to claim. Zarak could only watch as his armada turned into a graveyard. Somewhere in the darkness, sensors caught a faint distortion. The Retributor had returned, drifting silently between the wrecks, its dark hull glowing faintly as if feeding on their fear. It did not fire immediately. It simply moved, and wherever it passed, systems died, lights flickered, and crews felt their lungs tighten with terror. "Why are they doing this?" whispered Zarak's second officer. "If they want to win, why not finish us now?" Zarak understood, and the truth made his chest grow cold. "They are teaching us," he said. "They want the galaxy to see. They want their message to spread." And that message was simple. Earth was no longer prey. It was the hunter. The shattered armada floated helplessly above Earth, its once proud banners now silent scraps drifting among cold stars. Fires burned slowly on broken hulls, escape pods turned aimless, and the voices on the channels had grown hoarse from fear. The Retributor had stopped attacking. It hovered in the distance like a silent mountain of steel, its dark shape bending the light, its weapons quiet but ready. Zarak sat on the bridge of his dying flagship, his claws hanging heavy over the console. His fleet was ruined, his reputation broken, and his people's pride bleeding into the void. All around him, desperate signals were sent, begging for rescue, begging for orders, begging for someone to end the nightmare. Then a sound rose through the static, soft at first, like a distant storm. It was a voice. Human. Calm. Terrifying in its stillness. "This is Earth's first strike command," it said. "You came with war. You will leave with memory. Send this message to your galaxy. There will be no second warning." The message repeated in dozens of alien languages, every tone clear, every word a blade. Across the ruined fleet, the broadcast forced itself onto every channel, overriding their systems, cutting through encrypted lines like paper. It did not matter if a ship had lost power or if a crew hid in silence, the message reached them all. Some officers tried to cut it, but their consoles sparked and died in their hands. Others recorded it, their fingers trembling, because deep down they knew they would not survive, but the galaxy had to hear this. The Retributor began to move again, slow and deliberate, like a judge walking through a court of the dead. It passed close to a cluster of damaged cruisers and left them untouched. It fired no weapon, but each ship it passed lost its engines, its power, its light. Not destroyed, paralyzed, marked, and left as proof. Zarak felt his throat tighten. This was no random slaughter. This was a statement. A fleet that had once been a storm was now a graveyard with a message carved in cold silence. "Do not come again." "Commander, what do we do?" asked his second officer, his voice thin like dry paper. Zarak looked at the human warship one last time. "We survive if we can," he said. "At least one of us must tell them what happened here." But the Retributor seemed to hear his words. It turned slightly, its dark hull reflecting a thin line of sunlight, and a beam of coded data shot from its core. The alien flagship's receivers lit up against their will. It was a transmission, not an attack, not a virus, but a memory package. Inside it were images, the arrival of the fleet, the first disappearance, the sudden first strike, the chaos, the warnings. The humans were giving them the story themselves, ensuring that nothing could be twisted, no truth could be hidden. "They want witnesses," whispered the second officer. "They want the galaxy to fear them." Zarak closed his eyes. "Then the galaxy will fear them." As the message spread, escape pods were released, a few ships powered their warp drives with shaky cores, and the survivors scattered into the void like broken feathers. Behind them, Earth remained calm, its cities glowing in the night, its oceans still and deep. The Retributor did not chase. It watched. It waited. It knew its message had already been carried far. In the following days, the transmission reached the Council worlds, intercepted by their outposts and relays. Senators, admirals, and leaders of distant empires stared at the recording in silence. They had expected news of victory, of a conquered Earth begging for mercy. Instead they saw fire in the dark, and heard a human voice that spoke without fear. Debates turned to panic. Some wanted to send another armada, bigger, stronger, filled with their best weapons. Others whispered that if the first fleet did not return, a second would only vanish faster. The galaxy had felt many wars, but never a warning like this. On Earth, the people went about their lives as if nothing had happened. The skies were clear, the signals quiet, the planet unbroken. But in the shadows of its orbit, the Retributor drifted silently, watching the stars, waiting for the next threat to come. The galaxy was restless after the message from Earth spread like a cold wind through the stars. Every council hall, every war room, every broadcast channel carried whispers of the first strike. Some called it a lie, a human trick made to scare the powerful empires. Others believed the truth, because the wrecks of the alien Armada floated as silent proof in Earth's orbit. The Council could not ignore it. They had lost one of their largest fleets without a single clear battle, and now a question burned in their minds. What secret weapon did Earth hide? While the politicians argued, the admirals made a plan. They would not launch a second massive attack so soon. They would send watchers, spies, and hidden scouts. These were not soldiers who fought with guns. They were shadows who moved with silence, stealing secrets and vanishing without trace. They were told, find the truth about Earth, find how one planet built a ghost ship, find what sleeps in their skies. The first Shadow Fleet came under the cover of darkness, a group of stealth frigates that could bend light and slip through most defenses. They approached the solar system from a far orbit, their engines cold, their signals masked. To them, the Earth looked quiet, just as before. Civilian transmissions hummed with ordinary life. No warships patrolled the outer rim. The humans looked unprepared, simple, almost weak. But the memory of the Retributor kept their hands cold on the controls. They moved like thieves through a sleeping house, hoping the floor would not creak. The lead spy, Captain Varric, whispered to his crew, "Do not fire. Do not speak unless needed. We are ghosts tonight." They slipped past Mars, hid among its rocks, and sent drones toward Earth's dark side. At first, the drones reported normal readings: weather satellites, orbital junk, a few civilian crafts. But then the signals began to bend. A strange static filled their feeds. One drone sent back a single image before going silent, a shadow against the stars, familiar, sharp-edged. The crew froze. "That cannot be," whispered one of them. "It is gone." Varric's eyes narrowed. "Or it never left." They tried to pull back, but space itself felt heavier now, like the void had turned its eyes upon them. One frigate lost power. Its lights went out, its life support failed, and it drifted quietly as its crew pounded on dead consoles. The others tried to pull it with tractor beams, but their systems glitched, showing phantom readings. 10 ships, then 5, then none. The void whispered again. A voice, human, the same voice from the message, spoke across their private channel. "You were told to stay away." Varric felt a chill run through his bones. "We are only observing," he answered out of desperation, not knowing if the voice could hear him. The voice replied, calm as cold water, "Observation is intrusion. Intrusion is war." Before the crew could react, their sensors lit up with a bright flare. The Retributor emerged from the dark, its hull shimmering like it had been part of space itself. It did not open fire at once. Instead, it sent a single pulse that froze every ship in place, their engines dead, their weapons cold. One by one, their data cores were scanned, copied, and wiped. Varric stared at the view screen as the massive human ship drifted closer. It was not just a warship, it was a warning made of steel. "Tell your masters," the voice said again, "the hunt is not ours. It is yours. And now you have been caught." In a flash, the Retributor released a burst of light that blinded their sensors. When vision returned, only Varric's ship remained. The rest were gone, erased without trace, their signals cut like threads. He did not wait for permission. He turned his crippled engines toward deep space, praying the human ghost would not follow. Behind him, Earth remained silent, its cities calm, its skies clear, but the shadow that had haunted the first Armada now watched the second. The hunt had begun, but the hunters were not the ones who came to Earth. The hunters were already here. The council chambers were filled with angry voices, each empire shouting over the other as news of the lost spy fleet reached them. Some demanded war, others demanded peace, but none had answers. The question burned like a flame no one could smother. What was Earth hiding? The reports were fragments, torn and unclear, but they all spoke of the same thing: a massive ship that moved like a ghost, a weapon that erased fleets without warning, and a voice that promised destruction to any who dared step closer. At last, the council made a dangerous choice. If spies and fleets could not learn the truth, someone had to walk into the lion's den. They chose an undercover operative named Kareth, a skilled infiltrator who had studied human culture for years. His mission was simple in words but nearly impossible in action: go to Earth, hide among them, and find the secret. Kareth arrived as a traitor, his ship disguised as a civilian craft, his face altered to pass for a distant colonist. He landed in one of Earth's bustling cities, where neon lights shone over busy streets and towers reached for the clouds. At first, he saw nothing unusual. People laughed in cafes, markets bustled with trade, and children played near quiet rivers. It looked like any ordinary world. No soldiers marched in the open, no giant factories filled the air with war smoke. But the longer he stayed, the more he felt the silence beneath the noise. The networks were open, yet layers of encryption flowed beneath them like hidden rivers. Ordinary citizens moved with calm, yet their eyes carried a quiet certainty, as if they knew a truth they would never speak aloud. At night, Kareth wandered the edges of the city, scanning for military activity. That was when he saw it, a massive structure buried beneath the ground, its entrance hidden behind what looked like a simple transport hub. His sensors caught faint pulses of energy that bent around his readings, almost like the signature from the ghost ship. He tried to get closer, but the ground trembled slightly, and a voice in his calm whispered, "Curiosity is a dangerous hunger." He froze. No one should have known his channel, yet the voice was there, the same cold tone that had haunted the fleets. The next day, he followed the power lines deeper, posing as a repair worker. He found more strange facilities, each one quiet, each one guarded not by soldiers but by ordinary people who watched him without words. It was then he understood: the entire planet was a weapon. The cities, the power grids, the satellites in the sky, even the people themselves were part of something larger, a network that slept in silence until called upon. The retributor was only a blade, the hand that held it was Earth itself. Kareth sent a coded message to the council: their weapon is not one ship. It is the world. Every person, every street, every signal is a link in their war machine. But before his message could finish, his screen turned black. The voice returned, closer this time. "We let you see so you can carry the truth. Leave now. This is your only mercy." Kareth did not argue. He left his disguise behind, fled to his ship, and launched into the night sky. As he looked back, Earth glowed quietly, peaceful as a dream, but he knew what waited beneath its oceans and cities: a sleeping army that needed no warning to wake. The council would not believe his full words, he knew that, but he had seen the hidden weapon with his own eyes. Humanity was not preparing for war. Humanity was war. The council could no longer pretend that Earth was weak. Kareth's warning had reached them, his message broken but enough to set their hearts on fire. "The planet itself is a weapon," he had said before his signal was cut, and that sentence spread like a storm. Fear turned into anger. Pride turned into hate. The great empires of the galaxy came together in a way they had not done for centuries. Their fleets gathered in secret space docks, their shipyards burned day and night to build carriers, destroyers, and dreadnoughts. No more small scouts, no more whispers. This time they would strike with force so large that no ghost ship could face it alone. They called it Operation Silence, a mission to crush Earth before it could rise any higher. 150 warships, armed with weapons forged from 5 empires, set a course for the solar system. As they traveled, their commanders spoke with confidence but their eyes betrayed doubt. The memory of the first Armada still floated in their minds like a ghost on cold water. Meanwhile on Earth, the sky remained quiet. People worked, cities glowed, and children played as if the stars were not about to bring death. Deep beneath the oceans, in hidden command chambers, The human leaders already knew. They had intercepted the Council's encrypted orders days before the fleets even moved. They did not panic. They did not shout. They simply waited. When the enemy fleet crossed the edge of the system, nothing happened. No defenses fired, no ships came to meet them. The admirals grew bold. "See," one said. "Their silence is fear." But as they passed the orbit of Jupiter, a strange signal washed over their sensors, a repeating pulse, ancient and cold. One by one, their ships began to slow, their engines losing power without any visible attack. The pulse turned into a voice, calm and steady. "This is your second mistake. You came with war. You will leave with nothing." Panic rose in the fleet. They tried to scatter, but the space around them shifted like a living trap. From Saturn's shadow, the Retributor appeared, but this time it was not alone. 5 more warships of the same dark design emerged, their hulls reflecting no light, their weapons silent but ready. The admirals shouted orders. "Fire! Fire now!" But their cannons refused to respond. One dreadnought turned its guns, only to explode from within as its own core was taken over by a foreign signal. Another vanished in a flash of white light, leaving only drifting debris. In the command room of the Retributor, human officers watched calmly as their invisible net closed around the fleet. "We warned them," one said. "They came anyway," replied another. "Do we end it?" The commander gave a slow nod. A wave of electromagnetic fire swept the enemy fleet. Shields collapsed, engines died, and communication lines burned to silence. Ships that had come with pride now spun powerless in the cold dark, their flags meaningless. Only a few were left functional, their crews terrified, their leaders broken. A single message was sent to them: "Return. Tell your masters that this was mercy. There will be no third warning." The survivors turned and fled, their mighty fleet now just broken metal crawling back to the edge of the galaxy. Earth did not chase. Earth did not celebrate. The cities stayed quiet, the oceans still, the skies unchanged. But across the galaxy, every empire now knew, retaliation had failed. Humanity was not only alive, it was untouchable. And somewhere deep beneath the calm blue planet, more shadows moved, preparing for the day when the galaxy would try once again. The galaxy tried to recover from the failed retaliation, but fear spread faster than trade routes. Markets trembled, colonies whispered, and the great empires blamed one another for the disaster. Some claimed their admirals were betrayed, others said Earth used dark forbidden technology. But while they argued, humanity did not stay silent. The Retributor and its 5 siblings vanished from the solar system, leaving behind empty space and unanswered questions. Then the reports began to arrive, entire outposts going dark without a shot fired, military stations left drifting without life, and resource fleets disappearing along their routes. The Council called it terrorism, but those who survived told a different story. They spoke of silent black ships, of whispers in their radios, of systems shutting down before the attack even came. Humanity was not striking at random. It was cutting the supply lines, burning the fuel of its enemies without leaving smoke. Weeks turned into months, and the great empires found their borders shrinking not by invasion, but by fear. No fleet dared to move without triple escorts, no planet dared to speak loudly of war. Then, one night across the stars, a message appeared in every major network, written in simple cold words: "You sent your fleets. You sent your hunters. You spilled blood near our sun. Now we come for what you owe." Panic broke the silence. Armies were raised, but they were raising them in the dark, not knowing where the blade would fall. The reckoning began with the first Council world. Its sky turned black as an unknown weapon swept across its orbit, shutting down satellites and defense grids like candles in the wind. Moments later, 3 human warships appeared, their forms sharp and endless as shadows. They did not bombard the city from orbit. Instead, they sent a signal that echoed through every screen: "Surrender your council. Return what you have taken, or we erase this world and the next." The council tried to negotiate, to delay, to lie, but humanity no longer asked. They moved from world to world, demanding justice for the fleets sent to destroy Earth. Every empire that had signed the order now felt the blade at its throat. And yet, there was no conquest. No banners raised, no planets claimed. Humanity did not want their land. It wanted their fear, their silence, and their respect. Soon the great empires met again, but this time their hall was nearly empty. Half their members were under human watch, the rest too afraid to speak. The message was clear: Earth was no longer a hidden corner of the galaxy. It was the storm in the dark, and the reckoning had only begun. The galaxy was no longer the same. The great fleets that once ruled the stars now moved with caution, their banners dimmed, their commanders speaking only in whispers. The council that had ordered Earth's destruction was shattered. Some of its leaders were in exile, some had vanished, and a few remained as silent figures under strict observation. But Earth did not claim their worlds, nor did it raise its flag over their skies. Instead, it sent envoys, calm, quiet, and unarmed. They spoke the same words everywhere they went. The time of your arrogance is over. There will be no more secret wars. There will be no more silent invasions. From this day, every species stands equal, or faces the void. This became known as the New Order. It was not born of peace treaties or shared trust. It was born of fear. Fear of the black warships that could appear without warning. Fear of the invisible weapons that could turn a proud armada into drifting ruins. At first, many empires resisted. They plotted in the dark, thinking Earth would grow tired, that its fleet would fade like a passing storm. But the storm did not fade. It watched, it listened, and it struck only when lines were crossed. A planet that tried to enslave its neighbors found its military stripped away overnight. A warlord who tried to rebuild the old council vanished with his fleet in a single flash of white light. Slowly, the galaxy learned. Trade routes reopened under strict rules, borders settled into uneasy lines, and old enemies began speaking not because they wanted to, but because they feared what would come if they did not. And on Earth, life went on almost unchanged. Cities grew taller, oceans cleaner, skies clearer. The people did not see themselves as rulers, they saw themselves as survivors who had been forced to rise. Yet deep beneath the surface, in hidden stations and silent chambers, humanity kept building. The Retributor and its siblings no longer roamed the dark alone. Now there were fleets, entire phantoms ready to move when the signal came. The stars above were no longer silent, but they were quiet. A quiet held by the memory of what happened to those who struck first. In time, children across the galaxy would learn a new history. How Earth stood when others fell, how it endured betrayal and turned it into power, and how it demanded order in a sky that had forgotten balance. Some called it tyranny, some called it justice, but all agreed on one thing: this was the new order, and it began with a single strike that no one survived.